You're at a movie theater. The lights are low. On screen, a character says goodbye for the last time. Somewhere in the room, someone is crying. Statistically, it's probably not you. Not if you're a man. But the real answer for why is far stranger than women are just more emotional. Crying is not a personality trait. It's a biological event. Your tear ducts, your hormones, your nervous system, your entire evolutionary history all show up the moment your eyes start to well. Most people never ask why some bodies cry easily and others don't. They just assume it's about feelings. It's not only about feelings. Your body is running a chemistry experiment every time tears form, and the experiment has different settings depending on whether you grew up with estrogen or testosterone running the show. Start with the eyes themselves. Biochemist William Frey, who spent decades studying tears at the Ramsey Research Center, found something almost no one expects. The tear ducts in a typical adult female are structurally smaller than in a typical adult male. Smaller ducts overflow faster. Picture two glasses filling with water, one narrow, one wide. The narrow one spills over first. That's not metaphorical, that's anatomy. Before a single emotion enters the picture, the plumbing is already working differently. Now add chemistry. Prolactin is a hormone best known for triggering milk production, but it does something else almost nobody learns in school. It's directly linked to tear production. Adult women have, on average, far higher circulating levels of prolactin than adult men. Frey's research found this hormone is present in measurably higher concentrations in female tears. Higher prolactin, lower threshold for tears. The body is primed before the mind even reacts. But here's where it gets stranger. This wasn't always true. Babies, regardless of sex, cry at almost identical rates. Walk into any hospital nursery and you cannot tell which infant will grow up to cry more by listening to who's crying loudest right now. The gap doesn't exist yet. So if it's not there at birth, when does it appear? It appears right around puberty. And that timing is the biggest clue researchers have. Dutch psychologist Ad Vingerhoets, one of the most cited crying researchers in the world, tracked this shift across thousands of participants. Crying frequency in boys and girls is nearly identical through early childhood. Then puberty hits. Estrogen rises sharply in girls. Testosterone rises sharply in boys. And the crying gap opens almost exactly when those hormone curves diverge. Testosterone appears to raise the threshold for crying. Estrogen appears to lower it. The hormonal shift of adolescence is, in effect, rewriting two different emotional operating systems inside two different bodies. So is it all biology? Not even close. This is where the story gets its real twist. Vingerhoets ran a massive cross-cultural study spanning over 30 countries, led with researcher Diane van Hemert, surveying tens of thousands of people about how often they cry. The biological gap was there almost everywhere, but the size of the gap was not the same everywhere. In countries with more rigid traditional roles around masculinity, the gap between men's and women's crying was enormous. In countries with looser, more flexible expectations around how men are allowed to express emotion, the gap shrank, sometimes dramatically. Think about what that means. If crying were purely hormonal, the gap should look the same in every country on Earth. It doesn't. Culture is doing something hormones alone cannot explain. Here's the deeper layer. From early childhood, boys in many cultures are taught, often without anyone saying it directly, that crying signals weakness. Big boys don't cry. Walk it off. Toughen up. These phrases aren't biology. They're instructions. And the brain follows instructions remarkably well, especially when they're repeated for 20 years straight. Neuroscientists have found that suppressing an emotional response over time doesn't make the emotion disappear. It reroutes it. The feeling still exists in the body. The nervous system still activates. But the behavioral output, the actual tears, gets trained into hiding. Researchers studying emotional suppression have found that men report fewer crying episodes, but often show the same internal physiological stress markers as women in identical emotional situations. Same internal storm. Different outward response. One person learned it was safe to let it show. The other learned it wasn't. This is the part that should genuinely surprise you. Men aren't necessarily feeling less. Many of them are feeling just as much and showing almost none of it. Now widen the lens even further, back to where humans came from in the first place. Some evolutionary psychologists argue that tears may have served a very old social signal, a visible, undeniable cue that says, I need help. I am vulnerable right call. Oh my boy,